So today I want to talk about the health of the conversations in our community, right? It's a really important little marker to actually see where the overall health of our community is through the conversations. It's kind of like the canary in the coal mine. So when you're looking at it, what's ideal? Well, really simply, you want to see that there's a flowing range of conversations between a diversity of people, right? A free-flowing exchange. It's not stilted. It's not sort of this fits and spurts, that it's flowing to and fro, right? The other thing we want to see is that there is a diversity of interests that are represented in the conversation that's occurring, and it needs to be both in our personal worlds and our work world. So we want to not only a diversity of people contributing, but we want them to be contributing across a diversity of conversations. Now, really, quite simply, this enables people to connect and exchange in ways that are meaningful to them, right? And proactively builds those communication pathways or the connective pathways that later get used for work purposes. So even if they're talking about off-work conversations, understanding that they're building those connective pathways that later we're going to use when we need them for work. Now, the other thing it does is overall, it just makes individual participation a lot more satisfying. So how do you know if it needs work? Well, it's pretty straightforward, really. Essentially, you have this fragmented or it's a stilted pace of conversation. That's not healthy. Or you'll find that the conversations are dominated by a narrow band of people or a narrow band of topics. So they become one-dimensional. They're either all talking about social or they're all talking about work. Maybe there's a slight blend, but it's skewed heavily one towards the other. Now, what you also might see is that we have some diversity of interest, but it's not truly representative, right? So as you're starting to go through maturity, as you've got more people coming in, you've got a flow of conversations, they're starting to talk about, across a little bit about, say, like a little bit about personal, but mainly work. When you look at it, you see that actually that the diversity of interests that are being discussed in the community are not actually representative of the diversity that we know sits within the audience that are participating. So we want to pull that out of them. So we want it to be a full engagement, a genuine engagement, and a complete engagement. So what's the impact to the community if we don't get this right? Well, essentially trust becomes eroded, right? And people have a low incentive to engage because there's less interesting things there for them to actually get involved with. If it's too work focused, the other thing that you'll see is that personal connectivity becomes slow to grow, right? We usually connect in areas of interest before we actually then start to get to our work stuff. If it's too social though, what you'll find is it starts to put people off from participating. It'll be seen as a time waster. I don't have time for that, I'm too busy working. And it limits how and when people use the tool, okay? So it kills that cross-pollination that is so critical to solve problems, to innovate, and all of that just disintegrates. So that's the impact to the community. We've really got to get this right. So what are the causes? Realistically, the causes of this. Leaders are either missing in action or they're overbearing. Now, if leaders are missing in action, what I often see is the community or the conversation stays relatively social, and it's usually through a narrower band of people. However, if on the other hand, if leaders are overbearing, what that then does is it suppresses the scope of conversation, and it really only becomes about sanctioned topics. And again, the number of people that participate shrinks. The other thing though is that it can also be a factor of not having our existing activities or our existing workloads adequately integrated. So that's part of the other problem. So how do we respond? How do we fix this? We need to find new relevance. We do that by either engaging leaders to participate constructively, so we want their help, or we look to integrate our existing activities more completely. Those are the two sort of ways of doing it. Now, if it's too work focused, how do you do it? Where do you start? Really have a look at the social activities. So if you've got a social club, if you've got office drinks or any of those sorts of things, if you're running a table tennis competition, any of those things, look at bringing those social activities into this space. You can also kick off some off-topic conversations or groups, things like pets, children, cycling, always cycling for some reason. Those are really good things, like hobbies, etc. Start to get those conversations flowing. And you can also run a get-to-know-you campaign. So you might do a game of coffee tip or something like that. If it's too social though, look to get leaders on board. We need them there to model the behaviour. Yeah, set up a clubhouse for off-topic conversations, and it's a really important one because if you're looking to shift it from being too social, you don't want to stamp on the enthusiasm of the people that are there. So what we say is we deflect that enthusiasm into a targeted group or defined group, which enables others to opt in or opt out of it, right? So deflect that enthusiasm into a clubhouse. We don't want to lose it. Review the projects that are underway and see how you can actually bring them into the business, into the community. And the other one is there to run a live Q&A event and bring in existing communications is the other one. Now, a couple of tips as you're going through this process. I highly recommend you speak to the relevant leaders about identifying those activities, right? So if you're looking to bring in a project or targeting a business outcome, speak to the leader that owns it before bringing it in. Also, start with the points you can influence. Quite often when we try and do this, we try and solve for the entire organization. Don't do that. Work with your team first. Work with the people that you can influence on a day-to-day basis. You'll find you get a lot further faster. Look for items with high appeal in terms of current events. So that can be social or business. Be things like you might have the Soccer World Cup or the Olympics, or there might be an M&A activity that's going on within the business. Look for those things that you can bring in that are natural starting points. And they've also got high appeal in terms of investment from people to participate. Look for the physical and virtual places to integrate. Our integration course actually covers that in more detail, so I'm going to park it there. Look, if you found this useful, please come and join in the conversation at bitlaccelerator.com. That's BITIL accelerator.com. Again, you can also reach out to us through Twitter. Please use the BITL Accelerator hashtag or email. Thanks very much. Catch you later.